I first met Deborah Lilley in Monterey, California, sometime in the mid to late 2000s. Debra is a Oracle ACE director. She is one of the top people in the world in Oracle E-Business Suite. She can operate on both the technical and business side, and she's good at communicating with both audiences, which is a key skill. We're going to share how she got into this industry. Uh, if you're at university and you're just getting into this industry, things you need to be aware of. And we're going to talk a little bit about STEM mentoring and getting into the STEM sciences. So enjoy. And it's
And it's
recording.
recording.
So Deborah,
So,
we've
Deborah,
known
we've
each
known
other
each
for a
other
lot
for
of
a lot of
years, but I
years,
really
but I
wanted
really
to know,
wanted to know,
how did you
how did you
first get
first
into
get into
IT?
IT?
Well, I feel a bit of a fraud because it happened accidentally.
No.
No.
Yes, and I've written about it before, but so basically, I left school at the first possible opportunity. Well, not quite. So in the UK, you could leave school at 16,
Hmm.
but I
Mm-hmm.
did stay long enough to take that set of exams. So I did do the first level of exams. But my motivation for leaving school was I wanted to leave home,
Oh,
and
Oh.
you can't do both. Um, you can't stay at school and leave home. Anyway, I got a job with our government, and I loved that job, and I did really well at that job, and I did procurement. Procurement for foreign governments is what I did for a government department in the UK. And then I got a promotion, and the way our government works is you get to choose 3 disciplines, 3 departments, and 3 locations. And my first choice was Ministry of Defence, which is our biggest government department,
hmm.
Mm-hmm.
accounts, and I was studying banking at college 1 day a week, and London. And I thought I had a pretty good chance of that. Anyway, I ended up in Ministry of Agriculture, Guildford, which is about 40 miles from London, and IT. And apparently, I got chosen for IT because they gave me an aptitude test. And the aptitude test was, people laugh at this because it's so British, but the aptitude test was simply under exam conditions. So in a room with separated tables and an invigilator to make sure we didn't cheat, was to draw a flow chart for the making of a cup of tea.
I would
I
fail
would
that.
fail that.
Make it a
Make it
coffee.
a
Well,
co-
Make it coffee.
coffee.
I thought I had failed, and after 20 minutes of the allotted hour, I got up and walked out because there was no way I could do any more to this flowchart. And I handed my piece of paper to the invigilator, and he said, "Oh, you've passed." And I said, "How do you know I've passed? You've not even looked at what I've written." He said, "Oh, no, you've got lots of boxes. And what we're looking for is that you can break it down into every little part of the process, because that means then you'll be able to write a program. Your brain will work the right way." So that is how I got into IT, completely a fluke. It just happened to be when computers became mainstream. And so this was in 1982.
Okay.
Okay.
No, yes, 1982. And computers become mainstream. They were gearing up to have an IT department in government, and that's how I got there. I went off and learnt COBOL.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Yeah,
Let's go
not
back
Let's
a
go
couple
back a
only
couple
years.
years.
it is, and not only did I get to learn COBOL, but my first my first program was for writing writing booklets that talked about the statistics for fat stock. So how much do you get for your cows and sheep at market? which I loved because I had so much power, because my booklet was in upper and lower case, and I got to go down to the computer room and change the 96 character band off of the printer. So it was really exciting. And then the second job I had was even more exciting because my data came on paper tape. Now, it's not that I'm that old, because paper tape is much older than 1982, but it
Yeah.
was because it was, at the time, the UK had a little disagreement with Iceland over fishing rights in the North Sea. And our Nimrod aircraft would fly around collecting data, and that's what medium the Nimrod aircraft used, was paper tape.
Well, I'll be.
There you go.
I remember paper tape myself. I'm probably a couple years older than you.
I suspect most people are going, no idea what those two old fogies are talking about now, and don't want to stay for the rest of this recording, but it gets better. So that's how I got in.
Oh, okay. And you've probably had more than your share of challenges along the way.
So I've been pretty lucky. That's what I did when I started, and I hated it. I hated IT because we worked in our biggest challenge then was that you didn't have PCs. You used to have to book time to go to a terminal and edit your program, or you did it on cards, which again is how old I am. And then, so I didn't like it. And we used a methodology called Michael Jackson design methodology, which was very good, but you worked in isolation, and I felt that I was like a blinkered horse. I could see what was in front of me, but I had no idea what came before or after. And so I didn't enjoy it. So I went into operations and became the most important person in the IT department, because I got to choose which tray of cards went into the computer room first. And that's one of the big mysteries of life. What happened to all of those millions of metal trays that we had cards in?
Yes.
That's my biggest unanswered question in life. But then we moved into more modern technology, and I went to work for the British Army in Berlin, and it was Fox Pro was what I used there.
Okay.
And a bit of range COBOL, but mainly Fox Pro, and then I suppose probably the early days of Microsoft Access. And that was like, your homegrown programs, where it became far more normal for people to write their own in those days then. And I loved that. There were some great challenges there. Obviously, I can't talk about what we were writing programs for, but there were challenges that I felt really good because I was able to solve them. Then I came back to the UK, and I did another little stint in local government, and then I moved to Oracle. And this is quite funny because I'm not allowed to say I'm not technical anymore, because I'm just not a practitioner, right? But I did Ingress for a while.
Okay.
And I got the opportunity to move to Oracle, and people would say to me, well, why are you going to Oracle? And the best answer I could come up with was that Oracle had an alter table command which Ingress didn't have. And it was so sad. So sad. But you can't say that and say I'm not technical at the same time. So yeah, I was very technical then. And I moved more into the business side when Oracle first started their applications. So very early versions of eBusiness Suite. And I then spent about 3 or 4 years running a support function for the company that I worked for at the time, who had a lot of early eBusiness Suite customers. Then I did a bit of consultancy, going right back to when I was 16, and I did procurement as a job. I looked after procure to pay processes, and I found that my value was that I could talk to both sides of the room. I could talk technology to business people, and I could talk business to technology, and found that that was my sweet spot.
That is an incredibly valuable skill, because I know as a technician, for years I would talk to business people as a technician, and you would watch their eyes roll into the back of their head. It wasn't until I actually learned you have to talk to people in their own language, because a senior VP does not care how a hash function works. So
Yeah, and I like analogies. I like to visualize what's happening. And I remember, a long time ago, I was in Australia, and I was going to demo a SOA, an integration between eBusiness Suite and some other. I can't remember what the other product was, but I remember walking into the room and Alex Gorbachev coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm coming to your session," and being horrified and saying to him, "What on earth am I going to be able to teach you about SOA?" And he said, "Absolutely nothing. But what I'm hoping to learn is, how do I discuss this with a customer?" And that made me feel that that was my skill, that I could translate between the two. And I think, that's one of the things that I am very keen on. I think there's one of those ACE videos with me with sock puppets trying to say it's important that we talk to each other. And I don't think anybody today can work if they can't talk the other side. Everybody in business thinks they understand IT because they're IT literate, and as much as they're all users of IT.
Right.
But at the same time, they need to understand what the technology can do for them and what the limitations are. And then what's the point of being the best developer in the world if you don't know, an application for it? How are you going to use it? So the two have to work together.
Yeah, because IT exists to support the business.
Absolutely. And it's a two-way street, and that to me is probably the biggest skill. When we were preparing for this, you said, what one piece of advice would I give somebody at university now? And it would be, do both. Understand, do both. Take a class in business, or understand a particular industry. I remember going to on one of the ACE tours, went to a university in Costa Rica, and it was the most beautiful place. And this university taught tourism and IT. That was the two main faculties that they had. And this room was full of people, and they basically sat in two groups, and you could tell by what they were wearing who were the IT nerds and who were the tourism people. And I said, "Well, what year are you?" And they said, "Oh, we're all fourth year students." And I said, "Do you know each other?" "No." And I said, "Well, we're going to spend the next hour then doing speed dating around the room, because you have to. This is like, to me, this is like the most important thing. Especially today, we look today and we talk about, being agile and being able to one of the great things about cloud is that you can spin something up quickly and throw it away if it doesn't work. But it's only going to work if you understand what it is that you're trying to deliver. And so that's my big thing, that people have to be able to do both sides.
Yeah. I have to talk to customers all the time. I understand exactly where you're coming from. So you're now involved with STEM mentoring?
Yeah. So I think, you know, there's lots of conversations around, women in IT, and I've never had a problem. I've never ever had a problem in my life, but I do recognise that the numbers are lower.
Right.
But I know that you've already done an interview with Melina from Bucharest, from Bulgaria, right? I remember going there once to a conference. There is no issue there.
Oh,
If
no.
you walk into a room there, it's at least half, and that's because when they were at school, when they were at university, IT was a industry to get into with good prospects.
Yes.
It wasn't a male industry. It was, if you want a good job, this is an industry to get into. And so it starts there at school. It starts at school. And so for all of the science and the technology, etc., it needs to be done at school. We need to encourage people to join our industry.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, and so I'm very, very keen on that. And I remember, a few years ago, there's an initiative to. This is very interesting. In the UK, they started an initiative around the land speed record, and the idea was to break the land speed record, and it's in progress at the moment. But the initiative was driven by the fact that they needed to inspire a generation in STEM.
Yes.
And apparently the last time that a whole generation was inspired to do STEM was during the Apollo moon missions.
Yeah.
So anyway, Oracle got involved in this program. It's called the Bloodhound program, and Oracle got involved. Basically, they were collecting the data off of this car and making it available. So all the data's available, but also to encourage people. And there were things that you could do at any age. And so I got involved with their education part. To do STEM work for them, to go to schools and talk about this, and everything from explaining how thrust works by blowing up a balloon and letting go on a little toy car that you've made, to all sorts of things, to try and to show how science is being used and technology is being used to achieve things and to inspire people. So I love doing that. I also love talking to school children about careers in my industry. I love my industry, and but some of us are going to retire soon. It needs lots of young blood.
Yes. Yeah. I keep thinking about retiring, but I'm having too much fun. So.
Yeah, I that's one of my current challenges, is when do I want to retire? And I say to myself, I'll retire when I stop enjoying my job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Debra, enjoy the quarantine.
I'm not enjoying it at all. No.
Neither am I. But we're keeping ourselves busy. Thank you so much.
No problem.
We will chat a little bit later, okay?
Okay, no problem. Nice to speak to you. Bye-bye. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.